from my own experience entering in university, really your marks in high school only matter if you want to go straight from high school into university. And I think there's enough evidence now suggesting that that's not even necessarily a good idea. Kids at 17, when they finish high school, all they've known is school. They don't know what they want to be. They don't even know what an electrical engineer does, let alone, want to pursue that as a career, with the exception of a few who, obviously take a little bit more time and effort, and there's all these programs like work experience and all that sort of stuff so kids can get a little bit of a taste for it. But I think more and more evidence is suggesting that's actually good for kids to go out into the world for a few years first, learn what it's like to earn a wage, serving tables and waitressing and doing all this sort of thing before they even consider going back into a formal university-based education system. And I think the whole notion of university-based education is really getting flipped on its head. The traditional US-based system is everyone goes to college, right? You've got to go to college. You'll never do anything if you don't go to college. Whereas now it's like, well, to your earlier point, university is getting flipped on its head. Access to information, access to education, and skills is just being totally opened up in terms of the internet and open source education and all these various. Look at me. I'm an electrician by trade, engineering background, end up diving down to a fairly deep understanding of financial markets and macroeconomics. Like, I've got no right to know that shit, right? But I found out from the internet. Access to books and access to information and digital copies of books, and our world is now opened up to such a degree that I think university is not the be all and end all of education. If you want to be an electrical engineer, yeah, you probably should go to university and get an engineering degree, because there are very specific things you're going to need to know to apply that in the real world without killing people. Whereas some of the other looser types of university type qualifications is, yeah, we can do that from home.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I don't want to bash university too hard, but it's quite simple. Like, the free market has innovated, and the access to information no longer requires you to get $100,000 worth of debt. And guess what? Most people are choosing not to get $100,000 worth of debt. And the other thing I think that excites me most is the entrepreneurial side of it. And I think you probably see this in your boys, where it's like, first of all, they've done their schoolwork that normally takes 6 hours in 60 minutes. Now they've done that, they're like learning machines, right? It's like, where do you point them? It's like, okay, we wanted to surf, but now you're telling me about the stingrays. That's the default of like a well-nourished and excited and engaged brain, right? So really, the only information you actually need is what solves the problem right in front of you. Actually, going and doing 4 or 5 years of study isn't that necessary to solve the very specific problem you might have in any one day. And it's true, certainly it's taken me multiple years to get to where I am when it comes to like what Bitcoin is, what is money, and how confident I am in the decisions I've made. And you can't replace that with like a 3-minute Google search, But I think universities, they're fucked, because why would you go? And then you've got all this huge infrastructure. And then it's the incentive model that really gets me at the end, which is actually universities pumping out a bunch of capital misallocation and poorly incentivized brains. Basically, it's like with loads of degrees they don't need, who think that they are owed the world. It's like, well, you're not. And they end up with double degrees working in the local restaurant. So, well, those degrees are absolutely pointless. And that, I think, is like, it's such a gross misallocation of attention and money that's only possible because of a money printer at the end of the day. These institutions are all run with government funding. So yeah, I mean, it's great to hear what you're doing, essentially. It's like you can take the responsibility back, and I'd love to hear how the whole year goes. I'll be following closely.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And I think it's just to tie a bow and all of that. I think fundamentally what school is for is to learn how to learn. It's less about the content, what you're actually learning, but it's about the process, about learning how to learn. If you know how to learn, and that's probably something I only tweaked as an adult, like really my own journey of going back to university as an adult, is I forgot every single fucking thing I learned for the first 12 years of my schooling up to year 12. I barely attended. I smoked a lot of marijuana and played a lot of hacky sack. So a lot of that was was not there, right? But what I learnt to do was learn how to learn.
Nice.
And then if you learn how to learn, the world is your oyster. You just got to get your hands on the resource.